Session board meeting for Thursday, May 19th, 2016 is called to order.
All right, I recommend approval of the agenda dated May 19th, 2016.
Motion.
Second.
I'd like to do something a little different on the agenda. Is that, or the, pull something out on personnel separately? Is that the time to do that now?
Can we do it on the recommendation?
Do it now, or you can do it at the time of the recommendation.
You want to just wait a few minutes?
Yeah, I can switch.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, is that correct? Any other discussion concerning the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, recommend approval of the minutes for April 7th and April 21, 2016.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I just want to apologize to Priscilla. This has been a busy week, but that is Diana Reynolds instead of Deborah Reynolds. I'm sorry, I just didn't read them till right before I came, so I'm sorry.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Nash's fault. He always turns it on.
All right, so we'll start with just kind of some informational items. What you had there, guys, was the World Championship performance for the Sparkman Indoor Percussion Team, and we wanted to get you guys in here to recognize you, and that's directed by Mr. Jack Albert, and we want to be able to kind of get you guys all lined up. Before we do, Mr. Albert, are there anything you'd like to kind of to share to talk about your path and your program and kind of how we've gotten to this point?
Okay, well, first of all, can't tell you how honored we are to be here. It's our pleasure to be here at this meeting. And, you know, to start off with, and first of all, I'm really glad that you guys were able to see the video of the performance, because you can imagine how hard it'd be for me to explain what you just saw. And a lot of you probably have no idea what you just saw, and it was pretty abstract, and that was part that kind of worked in our favor. We kind of set ourselves apart from everybody else through a number of different things, but most notably the costuming was very kind of abstract. But this is the students here are the most dedicated and hardworking and passionate students that I've ever had the pleasure of being around and teaching. And you know, the lower nature in me would absolutely love to say, hey, me, I did it, it's all me. But the reality is there's so many people to thank, and it's such a collaborative effort from obviously the students and their parents. That, you know, when I say that these kids are the best kids I've ever worked with, their parents are the best people and the best parents I've ever had the pleasure and honor of working with. A lot of what you saw on the video was produced in-house, meaning the big light apparatus you saw in the back, which represented the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, that was made and programmed by band parents. That's not something that we went online and bought, you know, and that was all done in-house. The costuming was all done by parents. A lot of the concept of the set design with the mountains in the back, that was all done in-house. So we have not only great parents, but a great collection of instructional staff members that come in and work, and they do an outstanding job, and they've developed a great relationship with the students. But really honored to be here. These kids, again, they work hard day in, day out. But they practice during the day. We practice in a cafeteria, which is just big enough to put all that stuff in there and work and daily. And you know, and back to, you know, to being a collaborative effort. Towards the end of the season, honestly, they could have done it without me. That's how smooth of an operation it was with them. Just nothing but professional. And not only do they play and move and do what's asked of them very well, that they are a class act when they go and represent not only Sparkman but Madison County in public. They're always the first to tell somebody else good job and thank you, and it's very cordial and just kind of, they act beyond their years. And it's been a pleasure, certainly the most memorable career, season or semester of my career, and would certainly like to thank you guys, and again, thank you, Mr. Massey, for allowing us to come and kind of share and be recognized on what these guys have accomplished. So.
Well, the time and effort that has gone into what you guys have done, not just this season, but have built in a very short time to not just be the best in the state and even the region, but in a world competition is incredible. And this is a fast and growing sport that it's not like we're the only ones in town doing it. There's several others in town, and so Sparkman has now set the bar, and even at Worlds, competition is going to watch you guys, and they're going to use you guys as a benchmark, and just extremely proud of you guys, and I have certificates for each of you here, but we want to get all you guys lined up and take a picture. Mr. Best, do you want to add anything before we?
If you hadn't seen the show live, that doesn't do it justice. I mean, this is phenomenal to watch y'all work, and I didn't get to see those costumes, but it was different from last year, but it was good. Y'all did a great job.
All right, guys, we want to get y'all to kind of line up, and board members, if y'all want to come on down, I'd like to get a picture with you guys.
I would line them all up.
And I'll get these to Mr. Albert to get to you guys. We'll do kind of maybe double stack, triple stack. Yeah, an extra t-shirt.
An extra t-shirt, we can arrange that. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Mary Louise, come
Right
right here.
outside in front.
Y'all come on, yeah, y'all come in
Gives
front.
us a little bit. Easier.
All right, John, can you get us in? Say world champion on three. 1, 2, 3. World champion. Well done, guys. Congrats. Congrats and good luck on finals. And feel free to stick around or stand in front. Y'all are fine.
You're just gonna give them out tomorrow.
You want me to hand this out tomorrow?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, all right.
I wouldn't give it out right now. Feels like the air's starting to work.
That's right, you know what they should.
How you doing?
Thank you, guys. And
Seats up here.
Mr. Witt, can you zoom in on that? Control. Ms. Robin Lakey? Hey, Ms. Robin. All right, Ms. Robin's with the State Examiners of Public Accounts and ready for an exciting presentation.
In accordance with Act 2006-196 of the Acts of Alabama, which is commonly referred to as the School Fiscal Accountability Act, I'm here to present the audit report on the Madison County Board of Education for the period October 1, 2014 through September 30, 2015. Our actual report can be found on our website, which is www.examiners.alabama.gov. And each board member should have received a copy of our audit report through your email address, or if you don't have one, we mail you one. You should have received that by now. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards for the purpose of rendering an opinion on the financial statements and to determine your compliance with applicable laws and regulations. We also audited the board's federal financial assistance in accordance with OMB Circular A-133 audits of state and local governments. We issued an unmodified opinion on your financial statement, which is the best opinion you can get. It means that your financial statements can be that they're fairly presented and they can be relied on. Also, we had no findings that we reported in the report. There were no matters which indicated that the board had not complied in all material respects with applicable laws and regulations. We also issued an unmodified opinion on the board's major federal financial assistance programs for this audit period, which were the Title I and special education grants. So, are there any questions? That's all I have, if there's not. Y'all did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Urbana.
Ms. Urbana, would you like to add anything? Thank you to your office on what you guys done.
Job. Also, the program administrators, the guys here, they cover everything in our annual audit report, and this is not a Karen O'Bannon. This is a team effort, and I appreciate Robin coming to present the report. It's now public information. If anyone wants a copy, you can download it on the State Examiner's website, and I will provide that to you if you need it. I just want to thank the staff and the team that we have in Madison County, all the way down to the local schools. They do a tremendous job. Mr. Wilkerson wants me to thank him, but I'm trying to ignore him. No, I do appreciate our leadership team and all that you do for your support every year. And that's all.
Thank you, Karen. You want to comment, Mike? All right, some updates around. Tommy, if you can jump out of that PowerPoint and into our website. This afternoon, we have had a team that has, I'll just go ahead and say successfully rolled out a website today. Just click on that Chrome thing right there, Tommy. There you go. This is our new website that has rolled out. When we first went into this, our website was kind of under our archaic boundaries, and our people were doing incredible to kind of just maintain it and keep information on there. We've had a committee that has gone through, selected vendors, and then when you have a website, it's not one, it's really 28 websites, and then under each of those you have, under each school, so 28 for each of our school sites, but then you have athletics and clubs and teachers, and it is layers and layers of information and data and hard work and time, and want to appreciate John Sutherland and his time coordinating this, along with our computer service department and Vicki Sullivan and her team, and we've had folks from each of our schools that have been have spent a ton of time on this, and so encourage you guys. It's mcssk12.org, so it's a You know, it's a different URL than our previous one I never could get right, and I'd always have to Google search it and then go to it. John, do you want to kind of add anything?
No, I just echo what you said. It was I think, a big thanks to the computer services group. They really vetted the companies that we were looking at. It would have been easy to go with some of the ones that some of our neighbors have gone with, but we ended up going with Edlio. They're a little bit more robust, and they offer a lot more that we thought. Very hands-on in our training that we had. They worked with our webmasters at each of our schools, and our central. The great thing about it is they don't just drop it and leave. They're on call. They do webinars for us at least twice a month at no cost to us. They have a help desk that is running 24/7 pretty much. So our trainer that was in here last gave a business card to every one of our webmasters and said, if you need anything, let me know. And she's worked with us all throughout the day as we try to go live. So they are very hands-on. They're doing a fantastic job. So, and we caution everyone to remember that this is a starting point for us. There is a lot of things that we still need to do, that we need to transition, that we need to add. But it is a much more robust communications tool and portal for our website, for our district.
Tommy, do you want to chime in with anything else there, or giving us a look at Hazel Green's page? So,
Yeah, it has been a group effort, and John, Emily sitting in the back, and Lauren, Vicky Sullivan, and Debbie Brooks, and the instructional side have done a whole lot as far as putting the design together, and the navigation of the site should be a lot easier. The biggest thing that it does for us is that it makes it so simple for teachers to update and keep their websites up to speed.
Where will our agenda be on this?
On the board,
Go back
So
to
you
the
go under-
home site. There,
yeah, under.
Tommy.
Under.
Say again?
Go back to the,
Our district, it's more about that.
the left tab.
Trying to get- Okay. My mouse don't work a little bit.
Yeah, you need a mouse pad over there. The second tab right there where it says board.
And then you see right there, it scrolls down, you've got members, meetings, click on members.
Oh.
It'll show you a little bit there.
Yep.
Everybody's live.
How about that?
Angie, you're on the website, it's official.
For the first time, it took this long to get our two new board members' pictures on our website. So congratulations, you're now officially board members. Ms. Banks and Mr. Nash.
They've changed
Welcome to
that up.
Madison County Schools.
But we will, a lot of work to be done there.
So there'll be,
So click on
meeting-
the right side, that's where the minutes, also, if you want to scroll down on that,
Oh,
yeah, and then you can see like, yeah, certain maps that'll go through there. So we've got to populate a lot of that, but
so, okay. I got a call today, we didn't have our agenda online.
it's probably on the old site, which was still accessible right now.
Well, it was sort of accessible earlier
Sort of.
today. It was kind of fluttering
Flutter around
as
a
we were
little bit.
transitioning over, yeah. We knew on the day we were transitioning over.
So will we put another tab there for meeting?
Yeah, so under, you can go back on the board, on the left.
oh,
Yeah, go there. So under, we have, where's it say agenda? Say agenda? Yeah, we'll just add another tab that says agenda.
Maybe announcements or something.
Meeting dates? If you had meeting dates on there and then had the agenda for the day.
Yeah,
We'll
so
do
we'll,
that.
yeah, that's what we'll add on there.
Yep.
There's also so we're live.
Good point, Mr. Best. So surf around and we'll listen. If there's things that we need to add, we've told our schools, that's the thing. This is very amiable. You can work with it and add things, so we'll get that updated. So a couple of other things going around is with our, there's a pretty cool thing going on with Madison
You had
Crossroads.
meeting dates on there and then had the agenda for the day.
So we're live streaming on YouTube.
Live streaming and live streaming.
I would say live. I guess that's about a 15-second delay there. Okay, Tommy, that's all.
Live at 5.
All right. You can hop off your surfboard there, Tommy. You can get back on the agenda. So at Madison Crossroads, to kind of follow up, we've had a unique deal with, John worked out a cooperation with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to sponsor, they've never sponsored a single school before in an effort, and they sponsored the Think Outside the Box part. John, I'm fixing to call you here in a second. Pay attention. So in the last year, they sponsored the Think Outside the Box. My kids were kind of signed up, so we got to get things in the mail for grades K-5, really about implementing our standards and really kind of a fun activity for kids to do with parents. And they're actually coming back and kind of doing a follow-up. John, do you want to kind of talk about that for
Yeah,
us?
so they're really doing a national, I guess, PR push to do this, and they kind of thought that this program was one they want to highlight as how to work with, Title I schools and how this kind of program. So they love the program enough, so they've hired a PR firm. They're doing stories from around the country. There'll be 4 stories, and this is one of them that will take over in the southeast that they've chosen. So it'll be one of only 4 stories. There'll be multimedia format, so they're going to push this out through traditional media as well as through website and anything else. But we had about 25 people that flew in from the West Coast, the whole production crew and team that came into Madison Crossroads. We've actually been screening for the past month, going over there, finding potential rooms, screening parents and teachers to see who could help us tell a really good story. So credit to Mr. O'Rear and that team. They've worked their tails off, not only to get the program going, but also to help promote it. We have districts all around the country that are now looking to take this on. They want to do the same things. Great program.
Thank you, John.
Madison Crossroads is doing a lot of great things
Yeah, they
out
are.
there. They've sent their teachers to the Ron Clark Academy, and I mean, they are. I know other schools are doing it, but they are putting themselves on the map. They sure are.
Yeah, I think last night I retweeted a thing from one of their classrooms where they're singing a song as part of their kind of the curriculum and learning. It's a really happy place.
It
You
is.
go in there, you leave, you can just feel it. So school looks great. We got coats of paint, fresh coat of paint, and it. Miss Stody spent some time out there and had.
I did their instructional rounds, and it was very enjoyable.
It's a happy place. Madison County High School that did a tiger walk. This was a pretty cool thing. It's kind of a phenomenon taking off a little bit where their graduates actually went through and kind of did a little kind of a pep rally, walk of fame type thing, and visited in their feeder schools and their cap and gowns and went through kind of giving high fives and saw some videos of that. I didn't know if you're aware of that, Ms. Stoke. But that was a pretty cool thing. Just wanted to recognize that. You want to add any more to that, Ms. Stoke?
No, it's pretty good. I think the students enjoyed it.
And if I don't know if you noticed coming in, but as you guys head out on the outside wall out here, now over on that side is all the old superintendents we used to have, and on that side of the wall. But on this side of the wall is Mr. Mittman at Sparkman High School, his photography program. They always do a show, and every semester, and these guys do some incredible original artwork here. And I feel like one of my toughest jobs is to go out there and they make me pick a winner, to pick a superintendent's choice, and it's the worst thing because there's people around and I got to pick a winner, and it's one of the most pressure things you got to do.
I'm a
But
politician, isn't it?
it is. But I picked a winner, and it was a pair of buffaloes in a field, and kind of reminded me of kind of nostalgic a little bit. So I've got that in my office, but I wanted to be able to kind of figure out a way to kind of get them in and display them more prominently for others to see. So there's actually others from that art show are going to be out there, and that's going to kind of be a revolving thing. We're going to invite other schools to put things up too. But so as you guys that are regulars to our board meetings, invite you to just kind of keep an eye on the wall out there for some original artwork from our students that they're working on around, and some pretty cool things. So those are my updates. And let's see. Miss Anna Watts has got a few things she wants to share with us that she wants to share. And so you'll just take you on down the rest of the informational items as well.
Sure.
Ms. Wise.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda are the SRO agreements. You have drafts of those that I sent to you earlier today. There are no changes in those drafts other than the highlighted sections in your emails, including the dates, the number of days worked. Sheriff Dorning will be paying for all four, or funding all four of your large middle school SROs. The district will continue to fund the high school SROs. There is a discussion that New Hope High School with the commission at this time that there will be there is a plan to put someone in place at New Hope as soon as those funds are readily available. And that person would be housed at New Hope and serve the New Hope and Owens Crossroads. It may come later in first semester, possibly after the third week in November. But the sheriff will have staff available to staff that position as soon as that funding is available. It may come in the form of a funding agreement, but again, whatever paperwork's necessary, I'll get that prepared and ready.
That's a big commitment on the sheriff's part, and
it
our
is.
schools need it, and he's coming through for us. That really helps. We need to send him a huge thank you note.
Yeah, it's been such an incredible resource for us, from knowing we've got from a district viewpoint there, but also to be that resource for our administrators and students. There are helpline that we still have where kids can text in issues, and our teachers are doing a good job of getting that word out, and the response to those things are very, very quick. And
I know Sparkman Middle's SRO he's young, but the kids just love him, and he cuts up with them, and he doesn't like clowns, so if anybody wants to take him a clown out there, I might have done it already, but he's phenomenal with those kids, and it takes that relationship, and I just think it's a great thing.
It is. I'll be asking for approval at the June 30th board meeting, so you have plenty of time to do those and send any questions that you might have or anything that you need addressed. There is one section of language that the sheriff did ask that be added to the agreements, and that requires the school, and I wish I could tell you the section in the law, but I will look that up and include the Alabama code that's related to it. We've had some issues of things not being reported to the SROs, whether it was in the school where the SRO was or whether it was in the feeder pattern. And the sheriff just wants the district to ensure that all of the administrators are aware that those things have to be reported and to understand penalties under the law if they're not reported. And that's crimes that are in addition to the mandatory reporting law for sexual abuse or severe physical abuse. So that would be in addition to. Okay. The next thing on the agenda, I believe, is the student transfer. Okay. This is something that I've worked with Mrs. Thompson on, and I'm sure your schools have told you how much they hate the notarized residency affidavit. So we're trying to find a solution that would be, would meet the requirements of the desegregation order, but would also be, give us the data that we're required to have for the Justice Department. I have to compile a report each year of all the student transfers and submit that to Mrs. Thompson so that she can submit that onto the Justice Department. When you made your policy change back in 2010, you took all of that responsibility off the district and put it back on each of the schools. And in approving the student transfers for everything except unique situation. So now that I'm having to generate data for 10 years, that has been a very difficult task. Because one of your provisions in your first policy change was they only had to request the transfer if it was an employee's child each time they changed schools. So if you were at a K-8 school, you only submitted it the first time you entered the school and didn't submit again until you went to the next level. We made some revisions to that, either 2013 or 14, so that, I believe it was 14, so that would be an annual application for employee child transfer. So we're looking at a few ways to simplify this for schools and to put some of it at the district level, and then, of course, the unique situation remains with the board. The biggest issues that the schools have, and I know we have a couple of principals, one in particular, who've been more than happy to echo my sentiments here. The biggest issues they have are custody and the double occupancy is what we're calling that. Double occupancy can be defined when two families are doubled up and really the parent of the child is from home to home to home. And it may not be a homeless situation. It may be a situation where that's just they elect to live there. We're asking homeowners to come in and have their information notarized. We are beginning to find a brick wall with that. If I own the home, I'm having to come in and notarize my signature and provide you all of my information so that my sister or my aunt or whomever can enroll their child in school. And for a while, we didn't have any pushback, but we're beginning to have pushback from that. So it's very difficult. It's hard to put that puzzle together at the schools because they never have everything they need. Grandma owns the house and she's deceased, so it went to the aunt in the will, and the utilities still remain in Grandma's name. It's just very, very complicated. Or they don't have what they need, and it ends up having to come up to the district level anyway. So what we wanted to look at doing is removing that homeowner, because who owns the home is public record. I can get that myself either through a deed search or through the tax assessor's office. So if they come with and I gave you a copy of the the residency affidavit application, which is already board policy, where the parent of the child would fill that application out. Then they would complete the student transfer request form, which you see is a two-sided document that you have. They would bring that to the district office, and someone in the pupil services staff would assist that family and make sure they have everything in order. We would approve it, and then they would go back to the school and process their enrollment. A piece of this is the social worker piece, where that we can do home visits to ensure that we have less transiency between these homes. I want you to understand that you have 1,115 notarized residency affidavits in your district. That's how many students you have on a notarized residency affidavit. And I told Mr. Cubic that today. He was like, what? So we started keeping that data this year.
Who does this on the pupil services staff?
And Kim Hicks, the pupil services clerk. The schools the registrars already send those in for verification through the pupil services office anyway. What we want to do, because we will be adding social workers to the pupil services staff, those people will be the field people who can verify and make sure that all the information is accurate. It's not going to be a perfect world, but I think your schools will be relieved, because that is a lot of work on their registrars, on their counselors, on their administrators in signing stacks. And again, we try to keep an accurate record, and there are 1,115 students enrolled on a notarized residency affidavit for this school year, and we're still receiving those as of last week. And of those, that's where a lot of our truancy comes, that's where a lot of our tardies come, and that's where a lot of our out-of-zone is. So we are hoping that with the social workers in place, we will be able to verify and maybe help these families be more consistent. Because I have to have the employee transfers, I don't know any other way. I'm not getting them from the schools now. I do not have a complete list of every employee's child that has transferred. I have Ms. Hicks count today, and we have 215 that we have copies of. I can name people that are in this room that I don't have transfer requests for. I'm not saying the school doesn't have them, but I don't have them. And if I don't have them here, I can't provide them to Mrs. Thompson, because that's the only record keeping that we have.
I think this is a policy that we need to revisit. And just look at, is it working? Because we've got to keep that data from the district level. I mean, we have to have it at the district level.
And that's what through this method, that's what I'm asking. We're not asking for anything. We're giving you till June 30th to make an approval. So I wanted to get out here wanted to get out to you plenty of time so you can think about all of your options, talk to your schools, send your questions to me. I won't be here June the 7th. That's why I'm presenting tonight, to talk to you with anything. But Mr. Kubik will be, and he and I have worked very closely on this so he can address whatever questions. And everything else is the same. I took the language directly from your policy manual. It's just the double occupancy. And then we tweaked the student transfer request form to make it a front and back, to make it a little more self-explanatory so that the definitions of each of those are on the back to possibly help the families and the school have that readily accessible.
And I'll just add, this is really looking forward to having the social workers come on board to help us in areas like this, and also to help with for families in need. We've had social workers, but they've kind of been scattered about, some with the special ed department, some in Title I, one in attendance. And so what this does is going to align where each school family will have a social worker assigned to it through its feeder pattern. So we'll have six social workers, one Sparkman North, one Sparkman South, one for Hazel Green, Buckhorn, Madison County, and New Hope. They will work with the feeder schools and to work, whether it be attendance issues or residency issues. And we're really excited about what that's going to bring. But that will help make this process be cleaner and consistent.
There's without getting out in front of ESSA, however I'm supposed to say that, with the homeless changes that are coming, there's a big mandate with those students not being forced to change schools if they move across the district. So we want to make sure that we've got those services in place to help those families have a permanency throughout the year, because transportation becomes our burden at that point. So that's one of the big pieces that we want to make sure with helping with their having housing that's going to be, if they're coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to be here for a month, well, where are you going to be after that month? Are you buying a house? Are you just from house to house? We need to figure that out on the front end instead of trying to be, instead of reacting to it when it happens. And we have that a good bit. Mr. Massey started talking about the social work plan. You've got a copy of, it's version 1.0. That's just, it's not, it's going to be tweaked a good bit. We've got, we would have as Mr. Massey said, we have some persons in place that we hope to utilize in these slots, and then we would have 2 slots we would have to fill. Once those are filled, I'll be more than happy to give you the actual assignment as to who's in which zone, or family, high school family, whatever that's called. Basically, I want you to understand what these social workers are going to do. They're going to, of course, we have the district level attendance social worker, Ms. Anderson Carter. She will continue to handle the truancy. The people in the field will help her with home visits and things of that nature. So social workers are going to basically serve our students with attendance and behavioral issues, and we're going to, there's going to be a referral form if principals have situations they want to refer. I'll be meeting with them on a weekly basis to staff to figure out, what we need, where we need to kind of tweak. If we've got a big load in one school and we don't have enough help, then we may have to tweak that. Our Social workers will all be itinerant, so we can easily move them from school or pattern if needed so that there's adequate service. They're going to be asked to maintain a daily task sheet. I need to know who you're seeing, how many people you're seeing, so I can see their workload and what they're actually having to address. We're going to meet the needs of the schools and the families and the students. There are lots of social services there, whether it's food assistance, Medicaid, application assistance, finding a home, whether it's applying for public housing because they've lost their home in the county, or mental health services, or whatever those needs are, drug rehab services, whatever's needed, that's what we want to do. We also want to make sure that they're able to conduct home visits to not only verify residency, but to make sure kids are coming to school. I'm authorized as the attendance officer under the law to take into custody any child that is not in the care and custody of their custodial parent during the school day. So if that has to happen, then that's what has to happen. They're to be taken into custody, either transported to the Neves Davis Center for Children or brought to school. So that's one of the things that we have been lacking because we just have not had the appropriate attendance staff to address the number of students that we have. The other thing that they're going to assist, I'm the homeless liaison, and they're going to assist with identifying and helping to serve those homeless students. Our numbers are up a good bit from last year. We had 80 some odd last year. We're in the 170s right now, so we've had almost a double increase in that. So, and those numbers are going to be pulled down from iNow by the last day of school, so I've got to make sure all that's verified. That's a lot to do, and it will be a world of help in making sure those students have everything. What the schools are going to do is they're going to turn in a list for us to start working toward right at the end of the school year when they finalize everything. We are going to address chronic absenteeism, which is any absence from school that is equal to 10% of the school year, so that would be 18 absences for any reason. It's not unexcused. We're not targeting unexcused from the state level anymore. We're targeting absenteeism, period, and that's a nationwide push. So September is Attendance Awareness Month, and we want to have a big push for that for September and making sure that our parents know that we want their children in school. And we're going to find out why they're not. So our schools are going to generate those lists, so we'll kind of have a starting point as to who are those kids that are most at risk behaviorally and with attendance. The schools are going to provide those social workers with just a private office space. It doesn't have to be theirs. It can be shared with maybe the mental health social worker that's there or mental health therapist that's there throughout the week, but just a place for them to be able to meet with kids and contact parents. They're going to get access to the students as needed, and then an administrator who's a point of contact. Then the district is going to provide the training. I'll be working very closely with Mr. Perkins, who's working with counselors to make sure that if there's any cross-training or anything that we need to do, then we will partner and do that. They're going to have access to county car, cell phone, computer, so that they can to have their things where they need to be. Again, I'll meet weekly with those social workers and go through those task sheets. I've promised the principals I won't take more than 60 minutes with that. And then I'll maintain the task sheets, or someone in the Office of People Services will make sure that we have those and they're maintained. I'm not meaning not me. I'm just saying I can't file every piece of paper. And then I will be responsible for observing and evaluating those social workers and their job performance. And do you have any questions? If you have questions, you can direct those to me, and I'll be glad to discuss that again at the June 30 board meeting if needed.
Aaron's Law. Aaron's Law.
Aaron's Law, that's quick. You do not have to have a policy for Aaron's Law. You do have to approve the curriculum. The National Children's Advocacy Center, Alan and I met at the end of April with Beth Jackson, and I forgot the other lady's name, I'm sorry, but they basically went over their curriculum. Madison County schools have always opened up for grades 3, 5, and 7. They are working on a 9th or 10th grade curriculum, We talked about it running through the health class. They are willing to continue to provide those classes free of charge for this year. However, with next year, with the reauthorization at the federal level for training and for curriculum, there are some title funds that would be available for both professional development and for curriculum. So they want to come and address you and inform you of what they do, what their curriculum is. So you'll be informed by those persons who create, develop, and vet the curriculum. And I told them that and Alan and I will work together on this. Alan will handle curriculum side, and I'll handle professional development. The curriculum that they recommend, I've given you several handouts, just everything we got at the training. The Darkness to Light is actually a mandatory reporter training that they are recommending, which is in addition to the DHR mandatory reporter training. It's a 2-hour online training, and Alan and I, it's $10 per person, so it's a bit pricey for every employee. However, we have brainstormed and we think we could come up with maybe letting our counselors and social workers go through that, and then them go out and do some training with our staff persons. So I think we could train the trainer kind of thing with that. And the Children's Advocacy Center said that they will work with us to provide whatever training we need on mandatory reporting, because we need some specific reporting for sexual abuse. The DHR training that's online that every employee is required to do, it's more of a neglect scenario, and there's not a lot in there about true signs of sexual abuse and other negative things. You've got the task force from the governor, and then just a handout that's very interesting about neglected children and abused children and the dropout rate. So, are there any questions about Aaron's Law? And Alan will come back to you with curriculum once we figure out. Do you have anything you want to say, Alan? Add to that?
Code of conduct.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped that one. Y'all.
It was my fault. I started talking about social workers. I got
It's
a little-
okay.
There you go.
It's been one of those days. Code of conduct, you have a draft copy of. It's a very rough draft. There are a few inserts where I'm telling you I need to insert the law. We have a suicide prevention law that the governor has just signed like last week. So I need to get that, whatever I need to put in the code of conduct, to make sure that everyone understands what that's going to be, and that's a curriculum that we're going to have to adopt and cover. I'm sure it's an unfunded mandate. And then we need to include something about Aaron's Law in the Code of Conduct, which I've not put in yet because I wanted to work with the Children's Advocacy Center to do that. But the things are highlighted, the changes that are in there. The medication, everything from the nurse is totally new. There was a lot of changes in what they needed to include, needed in there. So I just eliminated the old and put in the new, so just read the entire new section there. I got input from everyone. I'm still waiting from a couple of people, but I have a note there that I'm waiting for that information back from them. It will go to policy review tomorrow, or it's already done today, I think. And it was just, this is the first draft. We'll let you know as changes come and as things are added, we'll send that back to you. We won't ask for any approval until June 30th, so that will give you ample time to discuss anything. Any other questions?
You didn't give us a hard copy.
Not of the Code of Conduct, no ma'am. It's about 50 pages and I can't, the printer doesn't cooperate with me, the color one.
It's okay.
But I can do that. Or I can send it to you as a Word. Well, I'll send it as Word, I think.
It's a Word.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we have a few people that have requests to address the board. Just want to make sure that everyone's here before we go through the process of deciding exactly the logistics. Michael Salmonsky, Annette McAdams, okay, and Rodney White. All right. So I'm going to read the statement that covers addressing the board. It states that all comments will be limited to 5 minutes. In the event you wish to address the board on an issue involving the general reputation and character, physical condition, professional competence, mental health, or in some instances, job performance of an individual, the board will hear your comments in executive session. It is my understanding that Mr. Michael Selnonsky and Annette McAdams both want to give some sort of revelation about the performance of a employee. Is that correct? So those will need to be moved into executive session by law. The definition of performance is meeting, exceeding, or failing. So whether you are talking in the positive or negative, that will be need to cover in executive session, and we're prepared to do that.
But is the employee over or under 75,000?
Under. So do y'all want to do that at the end or, and allow Mr. White to go? Since his, my understanding is Mr. White is specifically addressing a policy. Is that correct, Mr. White? Without any nature that would include a performance or evaluation of any member of or employee of the Madison County Board of Education, which includes all employees. Okay, all right. So do y'all want to allow Mr. White to go, and then from there we can continue into executive session?
Yes.
And
Out of respect for the guys that have signed up, I mean, it's only 5 minutes. I'd like to go ahead and do it in the order of the agenda.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay.
Let Mr. All right, Mr. White, would you like to come first? And then we'll go into executive session to hear the other two together. Ooh, I got 1 hour on here. I got to turn my brain on now.
Good afternoon. This concerns policy 619, number 20. To refresh your guys' memory, it concerns the middle school students being allowed to try out, play for the high school teams that they're zoned for. Okay? I need to understand why there's an interpretation of your guys' policy, which states that that middle school student can try out, play for, and play for the high school teams that they're zoned for. It does not state that they have to play at a junior varsity level. It does not state that they have to play at a varsity level. It just simply states that they can try out, and if they make the team, as long as the coaches, the principals, and the parents are in agreement, everything's fine. However, at this school, the administration came to the board. I don't know if that's you guys individually. I don't know if that's the athletic director. I don't know if that's the superintendent. However, the interpretation of that policy that they were given states that that child, that student athlete, must play at the varsity level. That's nowhere in your policy. The only thing it states is that said child should be allowed to try out and play for, assuming that coaches, parents, and principals are all in agreement. So the issue I have is based on the interpretation given to that administration at that middle school, is that child must play at the varsity level. And I don't understand how that's possible if it's not written in your policy. Furthermore, said child was able to try out, play for, made the team, roster was posted publicly for everyone to see who made what team, etc. So now I'm expected to tell this child that she cannot play on the team that she's qualified to play for simply because of an interpretation of a board policy. So I need some clarification on why an administration is giving a different interpretation than what the policy states.
Keep in mind, Mr. White, as we discussed, this presentation is yours and not ours to answer or rebuttal. There's no appeal process to the board at this point.
Okay. Is the attorney for the board here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Then I would need to speak to you separately, because I'm not sure how there's a policy in place, but there's no appeals process to it.
You would need to raise your concerns to the superintendent, and then he would come to me and I would advise him, he and the board.
Okay. That's fine. So, and furthermore, the policy that's in question was in place last year. The only difference between last year and this year is a new principal at the middle school. That middle school principal was the assistant principal at the high school, where last year a seventh grader was allowed to play up on the JV team with no questions, no issues, etc. So why is the interpretation different this year is the question that's at hand. So I would need to speak to the superintendent, that then comes to you for advice and,
CEO of the school system, yes.
excuse me?
He is the CEO of the school system, you need to speak with him, or whoever on his staff he would refer you to.
Would that be you, Massey, or will I need to speak to someone
We've
else?
already met, so.
Oh,
we'll-
okay.
But somebody will get back to you about your concerns, sort of thing.
Well, and we met, and are we taking his time? I'm not sure, or how
Well,
we do
no,
this.
we don't normally a presentation includes you presenting to us, and then after that, if there's any follow-up, it's conducted afterwards. The board table is not a time to debate or answer questions. It's an opportunity for you to present whatever issue or concern that you have, and then those things are followed up on later, and we review that policy at another time.
We just
Okay.
need to make sure we do follow up,
Yes.
though.
I think what
So-
we would do at this point, from a board standpoint,
Mhm.
is have an opportunity to review that policy after we've received input like yours from the community, which we do appreciate you taking time to give community input and allow us to know how that affected you as an individual. And then we review that policy and see whether it is one that needs to stay in effect. But at this time, there is no process to appeal or answer your questions from the board level.
Okay, so I'm expecting to hear back from either someone on the board.
I'll
the
follow back
athletic-
up with you again, Mr. White.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do I have a motion to
Yeah, let's go.
move into executive session to hear the two other individuals who have requested time?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 patience. We now return from executive session to continue administrative actions as soon as Mr. Massey is ready.
I'll let them know. I think we're on item B.
Yes.
I recommend approval for the superintendent to negotiate and enter into a contract with Preston Health Services to sell approximately 1.5 acres at Owens Crossroads School campus.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I would like to see the contract before we negotiate is fine, but not enter into.
And what we're kind of asking for here, and you guys authorize us to enter into contracts, and we authorize Ms. Stump to enter in contracts with mediation of some high-profile instances. This is not a high-profile thing. It's for the sake of getting this thing done. Carrie, would you like to chime in a little bit here?
Yes, the property, we don't use it, we can't use it, and all we do is mow it when it's dry enough, and it's really about time for us to get rid of it. What the owner, when I spoke to
Don't
him-
devalue it now, Carrie, please. Don't devalue our property. We're fixing to.
Yeah, it's a great deal. No, but the thing, he don't want us to go out and forward and spend any money, because he's gonna get the engineer's very first thing. He's told us the company he's using, which is Little John's. And that's the company we use a lot, very good company. They do great with their civil engineering and their grade work and stuff.
What are they gonna do with the property?
They're gonna expand, what they're doing is they're expanding, the majority they're expanding on their property to add beds to the current nursing home. So the property we're using, half of it, from the picture you can see, about half of it's green space, the other half is parking lot. And there's a little space of about 30 feet where they approaches, the building actually approaches over on what used to be up front, where that piece is. So they're a little bit closer to our school with their building, but it really does improve what we currently have there. They're not changing the entrances, it's gonna be the same entrance they have now. So it's just a parking lot that goes around the building to service, to the back kitchen area, additional parking. It's, it really is, I think it'll improve, of course it'll improve their property, but I think it'll also improve the property of all the schools.
Yeah, so it improve ours by adding kind of some drainage and work that they'll be doing, and also the school will be the direct benefactor of the sale, so it will all go to them for the.
It really is one of those win-win situations.
Two things. They cannot divert water onto the Owens Crossroads campus. Just cannot do that. And, I don't know how to keep that from happening, but evidently you do. So y'all need to make sure that's the way it is. And then they can't interfere with the flow of traffic at Owens Crossroads. Those are the two stipulations that, need to be clear in the contract.
How much property is gonna be in between us, and how much drainage area will be in between us, their new parking lot? Because anytime you add more pavement, that puts more water faster.
No, you're correct on that. They have a detention pond that sits behind their property. They're enlarging the detention pond they currently have, and they're taking all that water straight. Right now, that water, because it's low, it just sits there, and it builds up, and eventually comes onto the roads, the parking area. They're taking all that, they're trenching it, and then moving it to the detention pond. So it will be coming faster off the parking lot, but they're improving the grading out there to take it to the detention, and not let it settle in property.
I still would like to see the contract before it was.
Can you talk about, Kerry, about the advantage into us and entering in and working it this way?
Yep. He doesn't know, and Ryan asked for, I want the name of their architect that they put in their proposal and the name of the engineering firm they're using, as they also put in there. Their disadvantage is if we go and they spend all this money, they get architect and engineering done, surveying, they spend all this money, you come back and the board goes, no, I really don't like what you've done here. They're doing what we're asking them to do, and that is to improve drainage and to give us a good layout and better the property. They're doing everything we're asking them to do in their proposal, and they're gonna do that. They just want a commitment from Superintendent Ford that says, yes, we're selling it to you, or they want to spend all those tens of thousands of dollars.
But you wouldn't have to spend the tens of thousands of dollars to write a contract.
Well, you will, because he wants to write the contract with what they're gonna do on the grading. Right now, for instance, it says 1.5 acres or 1.576, when you square it up a little bit. They wanna have just a little bit of leeway to get the grading done properly and the amount of property they take.
You're
That's
gonna
what we're
have to
looking
change
for.
this recommendation then, because this is for 1.5 acres.
I think it's approximately 1.5.
Is it
Oh, you did the plus and the minus, didn't you?
Mhm.
We took care of that, okay.
approximately in the wording?
Okay.
But they've done everything that I proposed. It was a request from the board superintendent. Great idea.
Well, we've held projects up before. This is usually where everybody laughs, but, I mean, we've held projects up before. And I just don't see the big deal with going and negotiating a contract, sending it out to us and us approving it. I mean, yes, we approved, I mean, usually we know all the details. We don't really know all the details here. Really.
I mean,
We don't.
What do you not know?
Well, I was under the impression there wasn't gonna be a building on it. When we first talked about this, now there's gonna be 30 foot of a building on there.
And I'd sent that back out. And when I supplied the information the first time, I showed where the building was setting and the property we were looking at purchasing.
Well, I'm just one board member. I just think that it would be better to negotiate it, send it out, and then let us approve it, but I'm just one. I can't hold up the
and, I,
process.
and it would just kind of, this is just kind of asking you guys to trust us to do it right. And you guys trust us in special education matters, you trust us in mediation of other cases, and this will be the quickest path to, of something we put off to take care of this. So that's kind of what we're asking here, so, with this recommendation.
I wouldn't have picked those
If there's a
words.
substantial change from what is presented in their letter and supporting documentation, if there's a change of any significance, I just ask that you guys bring it back before you, in other words, I'd ask that you not do a contract that is ultra, like way different than this.
Okay.
So,
Yes, sir.
and if you can put that in the minutes.
All right.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Motion passes. Letter C.
I recommend approval of the following bids as attached.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
All right, I recommend approval of the following contracts for services.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
All right, and before I make this, Shanash, did you want me to just make this recommendation first and get a motion in a second, and then talk about, or do you want me to, do you have one?
need to ask you said there was some you wanted to pull out and go on separate. You need to make that request now before you recommend.
Page 17, number 33.
Page 17.
And he's asking to pull that, to vote separately.
What was the number? I apologize.
Page 7.
You're not asking me to
Right.
pull it off, you're just asking me. to-
32 or
No, just
33?
two different recommendations.
said 32, and you're pointing to
32 or 33?
33.
Okay. So the current motion would be,
Well, there's not, I haven't made a
I'm sorry,
recommendation. I was letting Ms. Snow catch up.
Uh,
Oh, you're there? Okay, you're right.
Which page are we looking at?
Bottom of
Page 17 of personal life.
Let's see, it's not on here on 17. Whoa.
yeah, if you flip through,
Oh,
it is
you've got-
actually page 17. It usually is not, but on this one, on paper, it is on
Oh,
17.
paper, that's what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
looking for.
You have it?
But I don't think you have it on
Do you have it,
I
Cindy?
don't have it on paper.
You're
it's
looking at the
online.
addendum.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. I'll recommend that one first. Is that all right? Ms. Thompson? Okay.
Wait, are there two different versions? I need to.
That's what, I'm confused.
Question of being versions.
That's correct.
Yes, and do you want to clarify with Mr. Vest that that's the one?
That's the one I gave you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
All right. I'll recommend page 17, item 33 as a separate recommendation. So that's my recommendation.
So a recommendation to approve number 33 on page 17. Do we have a motion? Motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Actually, I don't think we can discuss. Yes, we could.
Actually, we can.
We can. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? I guess that means everyone is opposed.
Or they could no vote.
Motion fails.
Would it fail 2-0 or 1? Was it?
Actually, I think there was,
It
did
failed.
anybody vote aye?
For the record here.
It failed.
So as in,
It was
Everyone was opposed, right?
opposed. So now we would move to the whole agenda of the personnel.
we'll bring that one back. All right. I recommend approval of the personnel agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Now, I want to make sure I'm looking at the right agenda then.
You've got two.
It should start with number 1.
Well, it
There's a
does,
lot.
but
It's several
Should be
pages.
Mr.
what's in
Cubic,
that
do we
for
need
the
to take
end of
a,
the
you want
year.
to take a break to look at this? There's a couple hundred
I feel
actions
like
on
I'm
here.
missing the boat somewhere.
You should have,
You got your scrolling.
you sent the one electronically.
Correct.
That is everything on the personnel agenda.
Well, I'm looking at the scrolling agenda, so,
That's the scrolling agenda, and that, there's no changes to that. And you were given today a packet with a list of releases for the non-enrolled. and the-
Correct.
And that was sent to you on Tuesday.
correct.
And that's just a hard copy of it so that you can see.
Just the
This is-
numbers, the
It's not on
numbers.
the scrolling agenda.
This is not on the scrolling agenda.
Correct. You're approving the scrolling agenda as well as that handout there. Minus the bonus and everything.
Because I still ain't seen page 17.
We need a break.
I don't mind
All right.
taking a break for you
I'm
to
just
look
gonna
at.
look at the, I'm
There-
good, I'm
Can
good.
we take a
I just-
recess? I mean, or,
You can.
I mean-
I'm good, I just, now it makes sense.
because there's a lot there to express.
This goes along with that, but for some reason, I didn't have a 17 on there, so I'm good. I see it now. I see what I was missing. Okay. I'm back in line now. I'll borrow this for a second.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is we have a motion and a second on the personnel agenda, the big one.
I'd like to thank Mr. Cubic and his staff for their hard work. I know it's
Yeah.
quite a task, this volume of work. Appreciate it.
I mean, it's like a book.
All 35
It is.
pages, all
There's 35.
36 pages plus this addendum.
The ladies in our office are phenomenal. They deserve all the credit. They did a great job.
We'll pass along our thanks to you.
I'm back in line now, I'm ready.
Is there any further discussion or catching up needed? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
All right. We'll go to a presentation of zone lines for the school. Check out our new website again. That's Legacy Lake there. It's the tab to the top right. You're on the right page, Eric. You got just a tab at the top. Hit present. Go up a little bit higher. It's at the top, Tommy. To the left. So, Google Slides. Tommy's a PowerPoint man. I said, you're a PowerPoint man. This is Google Slides. So we'll convert them one by one. Click that Got It, if you don't mind. See it right there at the left? Thank you. All right, so this was a similar version of what I presented at the zone committee meeting. There's, so this is kind of, some is a recap and some is, will be new information here. But there's three different steps of approval. And we've got to get approval from the plaintiffs, which are on the left, the judge, our federal judge, and our board. And what we're going to be asking and proposing, or plan on proposing next month, is for a contingency, or a recommendation for approval for contingency zone lines pending approval from a federal judge. Did I say that correctly, Ms. Thompson? Pretty close. So if the judge approved, this is basically kind of a pre-approval is what we're looking for from the board. This is just presentation only. And I'll look to bring this up for a vote next month.
If we have questions, would you prefer us wait to the end?
Just jump in whenever you're ready.
Can you go back to that last slide then? I continue to be unclear on how that is, the steps of that. Help me understand again. Are you going to be asking us to approve zone lines prior to DOJ, LDF comment or even approval?
Well, that's kind of what the board has asked me to do in the two resolutions. And
No,
yes,
I think it was to submit zone lines to the plaintiffs.
without pre-approval from the board.
That's
I
up
mean,
to
it
your
was- and
interpretation.
I
Is
can-
that your intent? I mean, whatever you.
Yes, it
Okay.
is to gain we could submit a plan to the DOJ without a board vote. That's actually what we did back in July. We submitted a plan.
Well, why
And
would
then
we
the board
change?
passed a resolution. So the DOJ, in kind of a good faith effort, they kind of, after kind of reversing course after 7 months or 8 months, they would like to kind of see, my understanding is that in the board wish to express an open vote on a plan to submit, on whatever we submit. I think it's important to show a blessing of the board on the plan that we're submitting to the DOJ. There's not a point of submitting something to the DOJ that a resolution may be passed months later, canceling out that plan. I think we've gone down that road, and we don't need to go down that road again.
Well, I think if you reread the resolution, that I think you're incorrect there, is what the board was saying. I don't know that I would be prepared to, or I would much rather, when it comes time for the board to vote on zone lines, that we, at a minimum, have input from the Department of Justice and Legal
I agree.
Defense.
I agree.
Can
I agree with that schematic.
can we pull that resolution back out?
Sure.
Is it in the minutes? Or was that back, there was one in February and there was another one in,
At the time those resolutions were done, there was no move from you, Mr. Superintendent, to bring the issue to the board for a vote. When the board voted at the last meeting, not to move forward with an 11-12 grade configuration, then you start the process all over, is my understanding.
I'd like to see that resolution. If I can, what's the best way for us to get that?
Well, it looks like to me in this slideshow, whatever, slide presentation,
It's in the minutes of this agenda.
that it goes board, LDF, then the judge, then us.
Well, that's the order we were going in, and then the board passed a resolution against what they had directed to be submitted.
I think you're gonna find that's not what the resolution said.
The minutes are not in my book.
Let me go look up my scrolling agenda.
That was February, right? The new website have the minutes always made.
No, it would've been, it's in your
I got it.
scrolling agenda.
Is it on it?
Just let you recall what page. Uh, this was March. So it wouldn't have been in March meeting, it would have been. So, we approved the March minutes on the 10th. It'd be tonight's minutes.
If it was April, we probably just approved them.
We did.
So they're in our scrolling agenda for
Yeah,
tonight.
I'm downloading. Which page on this? Page 16 is bids. It's not in that scroll.
It's gonna be in the minutes, right?
In the April 7th meeting, page 17, sorry, 16, of the scrolling agenda.
There it is. Okay, I'll read it. That's all right. Let's see if I can escape it. Whereas Madison County Board of Education approved a resolution stating its opposition to the superintendent's submitted plan to DOJ and NAACP for a new high school as of February 18th, 2016 meeting, whereas since that time, superintendent has not brought forward a plan to the plaintiffs or the MCBOE for the division of Sparkman High School and Sparkman ninth grade school into two high schools with grades 9 through 12 in each. And whereas Madison County Board of Education acknowledges and expects approval of a plan for two high schools to be an iterative process with the plaintiffs. And whereas the MCBOE would like to begin the approval process by submitting the zone lines preferred by a majority of the committee members to the plaintiffs for their consideration and feedback, and where the MCBOE recognizes this is not a vote of approval of said zone lines, but believes the committee's efforts should be submitted as a starting point for review. Therefore, it be resolved that below signed members of the MCBOE in an effort to productively move forward, solve the request of Superintendent Matt Massey to work urgently with the MCBOE and its attorney to develop and submit a plan for two high schools using the committee's zone line. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be set in perpetuity upon the minutes, and there's the close of it. So, does the board want me to submit zone lines to the DOJ without a pre-approval process?
What is your interpretation of the resolution?
My interpretation is that you guys were ready to see some zone lines. I think that was very clear.
I think we all are. But again, I think it's more productive to have involvement with the plaintiffs through this and not, I just think it would be more efficient.
I will say that my understanding was that the plaintiffs want to go to the judge with a joint motion between us and them. And what I remember Ms. Thompson referring to is that they wanted something that was solid, that we had agreed upon, so that they weren't taking something that we would back out of, or that we had not given some sort of official, I guess vote is the best word I can think of. My understanding from Ms. Thompson was that the plaintiffs wanted us to vote on something, so that then when they looked at it, and if they could agree with it, when they went to Judge Heikela, they had something solid that said they voted on this, and this is what they would agree upon, and we agree with them, and we'd like you to approve it. That is the way I interpreted Ms. Thompson's statements early on. Well, I shouldn't say early, because at this point, early could be way, way back. But the last interpretation that I understand is that the plaintiffs did not just want a submittal, they wanted a submittal of something we were standing on as a board and saying, we want this to be our submission of zone lines. And if you guys can agree with it from a Department of Justice standpoint, then let's hold hands and go together to the judge and say, this is what we agree upon.
And, you know, I'm fine with that. If that's what the majority of the committee wanted, that we put together, let's vote on what the majority of the committee wanted, not what Mr. Massey wants, not what we want, what the committee wanted. Let's vote on it and send it.
Well, there's a lot more to sending it than just sending
February
zone lines.
18th.
I understand, but,
Yeah, the entire plan has to be put together.
well, get the zone lines, let's prove the zone lines and put the plan together.
So are you going to vote to approve zone lines without having public input? Because that is something you will be,
Right,
that they
cover the
will look
colors.
for. They will look for where the public input has been.
Well,
We had
and
a,
are you gonna continue to take plans to the public?
we had a
North
meeting,
South?
Tuesday with the zoning committee, presented the plan. I was willing to present tonight the majority, I don't know whether to say vast majority, there was one that didn't agree with the plan, but felt like this is the same committee that felt like this plan that we're gonna approve is a more fair and a better effort at, that would be better for all the students in Madison County and a good starting point to get going. And they,
So it is your intent not to recommend, the plan that the board passed a resolution asking you to submit was map I of the prior
that's
submission.
right, and I've
So
stated
you're-
that I
and
have.
you stated your opposition
Yeah.
to submitting map I, is what I recall.
And I'm gonna.
And that's not going, map I is not going to be your recommendation, correct?
That's correct. I was gonna explain why this evening, if you guys will allow me.
Then you're starting the process all over with a whole
Yeah.
nother, set of zone lines.
I'm pretty sure that's what the board passed in their two resolutions, was to start it over from the plan we submitted in July that the board directed to be submitted.
The
So-
direction in the second resolution was to submit map I.
That's right. I'm trying to get a copy of the first resolution.
Everybody wasn't at that meeting on Tuesday, but the way information was presented about the socioeconomic imbalance with the Plan I, which looks like Plan 1, but it's really Plan I. And, you know, they didn't vote or anything, and there were some members missing, but everybody seemed to understand that that was a pretty big imbalance in the free and reduced lunch rate with that zoning. They were, and they are in favor of there being public comment, and I certainly don't object to that, but,
And I'm intending to have a public comments on was planning on doing that on May the 31st. Already worked with Ms. Novak, talked with her on the zoning committee, and we were already planning to have another, get public feedback on this plan I'll be presenting tonight.
How will that be set up?
Ms. Novak will be leading that effort. I'll be working with her, but it will be open, likely to have it at Endeavor Elementary. Already talked with the principal there about having it somewhere on campus there, and have it at maybe a 5:30 to 7:30 time is what we're looking at doing.
And I think the zoning committee they seem to be willing to kind of do the meeting. So that was what I took away from, and of course, everybody wasn't in favor. There was one person who wasn't, but I think it's worth hearing, so let's hear it. Mr. Madison.
All right. Guys, if you guys don't vote for it, then we won't submit it. And that's kind of what we'll get at. So here's the path to talking about a new school started way before 2010, circa 2010. But in 2010, property was purchased on the McKee Road, 88 plus acres, to build a new school, to basically make two high schools out of what was Sparkman. Plans changed. There was going to be an additional add-on onto Sparkman's campus with Dr. Davis. After he left, there was the BRAC law was changed, and we were able to have an agreement with the county commission to build a new high school, but this one to be in the Monrovia area. That was in May of 2013. A year and a half later, property was purchased on the Pine Grove site in 2014. I started January 1 of 2015. We formed a zoning committee when I was ready to recommend zones back in, I guess, March or April of 2015. The board requested a committee to get involved. We formed that in May, and in July we made a submission for it to be in 11/12. The board passed the first resolution against that in February, and the second one in, that is not a right date. The second one was not in May, it was in March. So let me make that correction there. No, they did reject it in May. I made that the last board meeting. I recommended the 11/12 proposal, and so it was officially rejected. All right, so why are we here, guys? We're here to create and support high-quality public schools that maximize student achievement and expand student opportunities. So what we do, what personnel actions we do, what we do in recognizing achievements here is to fulfill this mission: support high-quality public schools, create high-quality public schools. But it's to maximize student achievement and student opportunities. It's about students. And so with that in mind, there were 4 things that are valuable that we should want to have balance in building a new school in splitting Sparkman. Our desegregation order says it's got to be racially balanced. But we also think these other things are important balance too, and that's to have a socioeconomic balance. I'm going to go into why that's important. To have a geographical balance and to have an enrollment balance as we're building a new school. This was MAPI that the committee chose, and those are the numbers that we've shown several times. The percentage were 27.8 to 26.1. The enrollments were basically 1,300 to 1,100, if you kind of round to the nearest 100 there for Sparkman, and 1,300 for the new school. And the percentage of free reduced lunch would essentially be 53% to 24%, a comparison. Now, the goal, and the reason the goal is there, is that's what those populations would be combined together. 26.9% black and 37.4% free reduced lunch. That's really our target And as we're moving things towards that target, we want to keep things, those three things that are dashed there, listed the enrollment, the percentage of black students, and the percentage of free reduced lunch, but we want to keep also a balance of the geographical sense also. This needs to geographically make sense. So those are the percentage of the racial makeups are pretty close, within basically a percentage and a half of each other. But there are substantial socioeconomic separations. There's geographical complications with MAP-I, and there's some capacity issues with this choice also. So we'll talk about the first one. Our number one balance is fairly balanced. So we'll talk about number two. And again, this is not our desegregation order, but this should matter to the community. It matters to our team here at Madison County Schools, and it should matter to the board too. And that is students that come from parents. This is a national study of sixth graders released by Stanford University. I showed this in a previous board meeting, so I won't take too long on it. But basically, there's a positive correlation there with the wealthier the family. It's basically a correlation if they're above average in their sixth grade class. So that was a national look. Here's a look with Madison County Schools. Again, showed this last week. This is the blue is our poverty students, our free reduced lunch students, and the orange is our non-poverty, which is our paid lunch students. There's a substantial difference, very significant difference in reading and in math, not just in elementary, but in middle school grades. Okay, so it matters. It is a huge factor for us as educators. Those are the students that we're trying to close that gap. You know, and one of the big things we do in education is closing achievement gaps. That is a monstrous achievement gap. It's one of the things we're trying to address. It should matter when you're zoning for a new school. These are our non-poverty students across our districts. These are Madison County students in two classifications, elementary and middle. But these are non-poverty students. What we wanted to see is how non-poverty students performed in high-poverty schools compared to low-poverty schools. Okay? And the reason that is because we could potentially create a high-poverty high school. Our non-poverty students are affected by the percentage of poverty in a school. In elementary, there's a huge difference in math. These are meeting benchmarks on math. In elementary, there's not a significant difference. And what I didn't mention last week, I'll mention, well, I kind of mentioned it last week, but I'll follow up. Again, these scores, even though it's 58 and 60%, and that may not seem high, guys, that's the highest of any large school system in the state of Alabama. 14 of our 15 elementary schools are above the state average. We have excellent reading. There is not an achievement gap, and these are non-poverty kids, but there's not a difference between poverty and non-poverty schools in reading when it comes to reading in elementary. But there is in math, and there is in your middle schools in both reading and math. And that's something we're working on, but these are all non-poverty kids. It's the same kid, just in that different scenario. And we can talk about why that is, but what we don't want to do is create a high-poverty high school when we don't have to. So the geographical, this is the third priority here.
Could you back up and explain how you came up with those poverty numbers?
Yeah. So we took our three, because I didn't want to compare one school to one school. I didn't want to take our lowest poverty elementary with our highest poverty. So of our elementary schools, we took our three lowest poverty schools and our three highest poverty schools, and we grouped all the students together. Leah Smith and I crunched all these numbers, and this is also, we use PARCA data. This is on the PARCA on public, the PARCA group that releases this report. And so of our non-poverty kids, because we know there's an achievement gap with poverty, and we know there's an achievement gap with poverty and non-poverty. And so what I wanted to analyze is in our schools, when we have a high poverty school, how do our non-poverty kids perform? Is there a difference? There shouldn't be. They should perform at the same level, our non-poverty kids. But in elementary and in middle school, there is a difference. And we looked at just math and reading. I was going to put up science and writing and language also, but it just was a lot of data. But this is consistent across all subject areas. There's a gap between if your non-middle class kid is in a high poverty school, their ceiling seems to be a little bit lower than in a low poverty school. And that's not a good thing. We need to fix that. But what we also need to do is not create a new problem that we've got to go try and fix.
Why didn't you analyze the high school?
Because we really only have one high school that is even sort of high poverty. And so we couldn't really group multiple schools with that. Because you see, Sparkman is, I can go back to it there. Sparkman is 37.4% free reduced lunch. That's not a high poverty high school. It's very similar to Hazel Green and Buckhorn and in Madison County. New Hope has a higher free reduced lunch, but it's not significantly higher. It's not. We don't have a low poverty high school, and we also New Hope is kind of the only borderline high poverty high school. We don't have a high school that's in the 20s or in the low 20s like we do elementary and middle.
What are you considering the cutoff between high and low?
I would say a low poverty a low poverty school would be less than 25%. A high poverty school would be at your 50% and higher. In this category, it was all greater than 50% was our poverty school.
Yeah, but did you not say, and maybe I misunderstood you, did you not say you took the low poverty schools and you put those poverty students in that elementary?
This graph is our non-poverty students, comparing our non-poverty students in our low poverty schools versus our high poverty schools. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grades were middle grades that we looked. 3, 4, and 5 were our elementary grades. This is Aspire data, so they tested grades 3 through 8 for the last 3 years, and this data is consistent for the last 3 years. This is 2015 school year data. We have this for 14, and we just took the 16. We don't have those. We'll get those results.
But I think this is an instance where we need to take an actual middle school for middle school and see what the numbers are.
We have that, but what you
I
get
think
if you
it'll-
just take,
I think it'll tell a different picture.
if you take 28 schools and you compare your highest and lowest, that's not a good sampling. If you can take, but if there's 3 that are close together, you take 3 and 3, you're increasing your sample size and it's more consistent data. You don't
Yeah,
want to
but-
just take if you got a class of 30 kids, you don't want to take your poorest kid and the kid that has the highest median home value income and compare those directly. That's not a good.
And I hear you, but if I take a large middle school with high poverty, and I take a small middle school with low poverty, and I put them together, your numbers are going to be skewed. I mean, I think if you take apples
That's
for
why I
apples.
took 3.
I know, but it's going to skew the numbers. I think we have to compare, let's just say it's Sparkman Middle to Monrovia Middle.
Or 3, I mean, we can name the schools. I didn't want to do a school by
No,
school.
I'm just saying, I think for this, in this case, we take Sparkman Middle and Monrovia Middle, and we put 7th grade, 8th grade, 6th grade together.
I can give those to you. I did not want to call out schools with names in a public forum like this. I will be glad to sit down with you and go through that data. If you compared any of our 3 with any of the 3, there's a significant difference.
In math, it could be because of that algebra class. Just saying.
We're not going there, Mr. Best. We're going to talk about 8th grade algebra again there.
The Parker results, I get them every year. They give a lot of this information. I'm sure you get it from Sanford.
anyway, go ahead.
What would be your expectation? There appears to be some differences in elementary, middle school in this type of comparison. And again, I appreciate that data, and that's interesting to know, but we are talking about a high school. What would be your expectation of data what would it look like in a high school? Do you think it would be increasing disparity or good? I don't doubt that.
And that, it tends to show the older they get, with the socioeconomic piece.
Well, the elementary to middle did a good job on this.
In the math, there was just a bigger drop. They both dropped, and there's still a gap. But this is our poverty and non-poverty right here. The other red and blue were all non-poverty kids. Socioeconomic status matters in achievement. It is a risk factor, and we try to. That's something we keep an eye on, and we try to help those students. The geographical issues of Map I this creates. We've got a couple instances where we created enclaves, and enclaves are something that some school systems have tried to use to equalize racial makeups of schools to achieve balance between two. We have two areas that we sort of tried to do that. The dot, the red dot in the top right, the northern dot, that's Sparkman. And the red dot in the bottom left, that's the new school site. And the top circle is an area that's higher in minorities and higher in socioeconomic income, and they would be traveling further than anyone else to the new school. In fact, driving by Sparkman to go to their new school. And what some school systems have found and have written about is that this creates actually more stress on those families that are the most disadvantaged, where it's harder for them to, whether it be after school activities or sports or clubs or parent meetings, they're at even a bigger disadvantage for geography. We also have another enclave in the bottom left there, that circle. To the left, in the bottom right of that circle on that dot is that house is north of Pine Grove Road and is literally the closest house to the front door of that school. And he's not zoned for that school. And that whole neighborhood, which doesn't really have a name. It's not like the Ridge, it's not Kelly Plantation, it's not, Kelly Springs. It's a whole different kind of mix. There's not really an HOA. They're not necessarily as organized. And that's an enclave that is not going to the school closest to them to try to achieve a racial balance. So those are two, honestly, red flags that if we can avoid those things, we need to do that. And the committee recognized this with that too. The enrollment balance, the capacity at Sparkman is 1,850, and we're looking at the capacity for the new high school to be 1,600. And I just enlarge the enrollment balance there from Map I. For Sparkman to be at near 1,100 and a capacity of 1,850 is a lot of empty room. The enrollment, more concerning, is nearing 1,300 for the new high school. Whenever anyone builds a high school, there's an enrollment bump. It happened at Endeavor, where they gained more than 100 students from when we started building it to when we opened it. It happened at Huntsville High School when by the time it was through building, they were over capacity the first day that it opened. And so what we need to do is, what I would like to do is for those in the lease, those enrollments for both schools to be as close to equal as positive as possible. But if one is going to be larger than the other by 170 or 160 students, it would be preferable for Sparkman to have the larger number because it has the capacity, and so you have more room for that enrollment bump into the new high school. So that was one of the other balance, but at least let's try to make that equal. So here's the draft proposal that that I would like to present. That's different than any of the other maps that we've submitted, and we submitted all the other maps here. I'm going to zoom in on this in just a second here. But this is the wide view, and you can really see the lateral view of how far north the Sparkman zone extends. The population is in the southern piece, but the middle of that Sparkman road, of that Sparkman division, is basically kind of McKee Road. And so Sparkman at high school is already located in the southern third. If you divide that into thirds, it's kind of on that southern third boundary. And so the second high school is in the southern piece too. So this is kind of a zoomed in version. So what we have here to go to the new school, and the breakdowns are to your left, and I'll go over that. This would be west of Jeff Road, south of Douglas, and west of Pettis. And as it runs north into what will be the Harvest Elementary Zone, would be west of Wall Triana. The enrollments would be right at 1,200 for both schools. The racial percentages practically the same as the committees, 27.8, 26. But the free reduced lunch number is the big difference number, and with 43 to 31 and a half comparably. And the big difference here is the geographical balance. Is there are no enclaves. There's no area. There's no neighborhood that you can circle to say these guys are driving by one school to go to another. The new high school is located south and west of the current Sparkman High School. And so if you took the whole of the Sparkman zone, I'll go back a slide, we basically take the south and west of that Sparkman zone to fit on the campus of a school that's located south and west of that. Now what this means is the pathway of the students is the 3 elementary zones for Monrovia Middle. East of Jeff Road, Monrovia Elementary is together K-12. West of Wall Triana is Endeavor. They're together K-12. The 2 elementary zones that aren't together K-12 are Harvest Elementary and Legacy. Legacy south of Douglas will be zoned to the new school, and north of Douglas, essentially, except for the Pettis area, would be zoned to stay at Sparkman.
But you are splitting Legacy and Monrovia Elementary.
No, splitting Legacy and Harvest Elementary.
How is Monrovia Elementary not split when they're not even in the zone?
Their school is not in the zone, which is kind of ironic. If you live in Monrovia Elementary School, you don't go to Monrovia Elementary School, you go to Legacy. Monrovia Elementary is west of Jeff, but their zone is east of Jeff. So it's a situation where the school is not in his zone.
It's a 300 foot thing.
So east of Jeff is Monrovia Elementary. They will match up with Legacy's north.
So no one from Monrovia Elementary goes to the new school.
So Legacy's northern section will match with Monrovia's donated middle school, and they'll stay together 6. And Legacy's southern area will match with Endeavor Middle School, and they'll stay together 6-12. Harvest Elementary is split east and west, where the eastern part of Harvest Elementary, nothing changes in either one. They'll stay together, and they'll match with all of Madison Crossroads is together. But the western half of Harvest would match in with Endeavor in sit on the Waltrana. They go south, and you're right there on the, you go south on Waltrana, and you're right there at the school. Again, what we're trying to do is to balance this racially, socioeconomically, because that matters. We need an enrollment balance because you can expect a bump in enrollment. And geographically, it needs to make sense. If you look at the direct comparison between the two, this is just the numbers in a kind of in a side-by-side format. The draft that I'm presenting tonight and would like to propose in June would be the two columns on the right side of the two, and the geographical balance is essentially eliminating the enclaves or the satellite areas or cluster assignments. It's kind of what they're all can be referred to. We don't have to do that to try to achieve balance. And if you don't have to do that, we shouldn't do that. Are there any questions? That's my presentation. And we are going to planning on having a community meeting at Endeavor, or kind of a community input session at Endeavor Elementary. There will be several members from the committee there to help kind of answer questions and talk about the process we've gone through. Invite the board members there, and we're looking at doing that 5:30 to 7:30 on Tuesday night, May the 31st, day after Memorial Day.
But I think that because of the affected areas, you need to have one at Harvest.
Yeah, and the areas, if you think about who is changing, who is this affecting? Who is not going to Sparkman? You know, is basically your West Orchard.
I don't think that's going to be your focus now. I think the focus is you're changing a kid that's gone to school K through 6. At 6th grade, they're changing. They'll be changing, or they won't go to school with those kids anymore.
Well, they will grade 6, 8. It'll be after the 8th grade.
Okay. Oh, well, okay. That's right.
So we're not changing middle school lines. I'm not proposing any change of middle school lines. So it would be
I misspoke.
after the 8th grade.
I think it will. I think that's where your feedback's going to come from now.
Well, I would advise you to get some input from the plaintiffs in the case before you go to the public with a plan. If the plaintiffs don't agree to the plan, we're starting back at square one.
Well, I have asked to speak to the plaintiffs. I had a recent trip to Washington, D.C. where I asked to speak with the plaintiffs. I would love to speak with the plaintiffs. I would love to meet with the plaintiffs to talk about possible zone lines. If the board would pass a resolution to allow me to do that, I would love to conference call with them to see what they're looking for.
Well, what are we holding you back?
No, they asked to speak through council only. They don't communicate through superintendents and boards.
Well, they do.
Well, that's what the request was made.
I mean, there's other school systems where the superintendents are communicating directly with the DOJ attorneys.
Well, that would be the preference of the
That would
DOJ
speed
attorney.
this process up.
No, sir, it would not. I beg to differ with you. If you go forward with board vote and public hearings, I'm just telling you that the large chance is that they're not gonna agree to this plan, and then you're back at square one, going back to the public.
So
with
the
another
board
round.
does not want me to bring this up for a recommendation.
I put in writing to you what I suggested, how.
I know that. I'm asking the board if they
I
would
do have
rather
some
me not
confusion,
to
'cause
recommend this.
Just a minute ago, and I may have I thought that you said you should not present a zone line that you do not have community input on.
You should not present it for a vote that you don't, but are you going to go have community input and vote on something that you don't even know how the plaintiffs in the case are going to consider it? You haven't given them the opportunity to see it beforehand.
And I thought you also, I'm just trying to make sure I understand what we're doing. I thought you also said that the plaintiffs don't want to see anything that we haven't agreed that we could stand behind.
You need to submit a unified plan.
So,
Not just the superintendent's plan or the board's plan, a unified plan.
but can you see how it's confusing that you want us to present a unified plan that we haven't voted on, that we got community input on, but haven't actually got community input on because we don't want to get community input before we make sure that we can move forward with it? We're kind of in a, it's like two circles on each side that we can't move forward with. It's like two tires laying on their side going like this, is how it feels to me. Because the direction I hear is, we need to go forward with a unified plan that we can all stand behind, therefore we would have needed to vote on that zone line.
Well, we can do that, but what she's
But
saying
she's also
is,
saying is, we shouldn't vote on a zone line till we have community input. But she also says that we shouldn't get community input till we make sure the plaintiffs think the plan is okay. So that's why that's what I hear, and that's why it's confusing to me how it is we are supposed to get from A, where we have been sitting for a very long time, to B. Do you see how that's when you, and that may not be how you mean for it to come out, but when you're telling us that we go here, then we go here, and we go here, and we go here, but we never go this way.
The normal method by which you would negotiate this with the plaintiffs is that you would have the plaintiffs, you would negotiate with them on the front end, and then you either do the board vote.
When you
or
say
vote for it.
negotiate, define what you mean by negotiate, because we've talked to these people a billion times, and I don't understand what negotiate means. Do you mean,
Negotiate, well,
what do they want from us that's information? Because in order to negotiate, we have
you've
to
seen
have,
the submissions that they've asked for in the past, correct? And then the supplemental questions. They want to see a complete plan. They don't just want zone lines. You have to have the plan for construction, the plan for
Right,
academics.
but-
all those things.
That doesn't change
And-
from the 11-12 plan we submitted. We're not changing the way we build the school based on the grade configuration.
because
The
my understanding is
academics, the
we
athletics,
have
all that's different. That all has to be reworked. And then if you vote on the plan without their input, then you're saying to them, we didn't need your help in developing the plan.
How do we get their input if you also don't want us to present a plan that we haven't voted on?
I didn't say you couldn't present a plan you hadn't
You
voted
said
on.
we needed to present a plan that we could guarantee them would pass, basically, and we can't do that unless we vote. We can't not vote and vote at the same time. In order to present them a plan that we all agree upon, we have to, at some point, agree. And
Well-
our only mechanism to agree is to vote, am I correct?
If that's how you choose to do it.
So and please feel free to jump in here, guys. Does anybody else feel a little bit of confusion about how we're supposed to move forward?
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
have any idea
confused.
what we're supposed to do.
what I heard was, we can vote on a plan and we can take it to the public. We can take it to the public, we can vote on a plan, but if the LDF says no, we're back at square one.
That's
Which
right.
to me
Yes.
goes back to my favorite word, iterative. If it's an iterative process, do we not vote on something and then have them come back and say, I know you guys approved this, but this is what we'd like to see different, and then we vote on what those changes are? That is the way I understood the process to move forward, is that we would approve something. We
Which
would
is just
send
a
it to them.
suggestion.
And then they would say, oh, goodness, no. And we'd go, okay, well, look at that again with your comments. Your comments being the LDF and the DOJ's comments. And we'd look back and say, okay, we can accept that that's probably a problem until we all agree on something. But how do we send forward something we agree upon if we don't have the opportunity to voice our agreement? Or do...
If I get community input and I recommend zone lines and then put it as part of a package to submit, can they vote on zone lines separate from the complete package? Are you saying,
I
are they
have to
voting on
have the
submission?
whole package. They wouldn't necessarily have to vote on it.
Well,
But
the
the-
complete
On the whole
package, we don't vote on, am I
That's
correct?
right.
We don't vote on how they do sports or athletics or curriculum or fill up the classrooms. The only board action that goes into this plan is the zone line, is that correct? The rest of it is the operation, day-to-day operation of the
No.
school.
Approve the whole thing.
Well,
Or you would authorize us, like you ask in the resolution. You ask in the resolution that we work together to move forward with the zone lines that were map I, but that's not where we are.
So
Because
we
the
submitted
superintendent's not-
something to the DOJ and the Justice Department well, the DOJ and LDF in July that had community input. It was submitted at the direction of the board. There was a change of mind.
It didn't have,
Hold
it
on.
didn't have community
Let me
input.
go back to what you just said.
There
You
was
just
no
said-
community input on that.
Time out. You just said that the resolution said that that the board as a whole requested that we do Plan I.
Yes, and the
So,
superintendent's
hold
not
on.
doing that.
Correct. What is different between Matt submitting Plan I to the board to vote on and submitting his plan for the board to vote on?
Because the board didn't ask him to
No.
submit his plan.
So who are you asking to submit it
I think we need to read the
to?
resolution as what it says. I think
The
we're overthinking-
resolution says
we're
present it
overthinking.
to
We're way overthinking.
the DOJ. I get that.
The point, and what I'm trying to, or have been trying to make, is I'm not advocating for any zone lines. Take them all, throw them up in the air, whichever one you catch, submit it to the DOJ.
So are we authorizing, would we be comfortable just saying, Mr. Massey, we authorize you to present a zone line as long as it has had some type of community input to the
I
DOJ
just
to
want
consider?
something submitted to the Department of Justice. Why we haven't done that or not doing that is, it baffles me.
Can we submit it to the DOJ without a board vote?
You did before, yes, sir.
So is that what you're asking to do now? Submit it to the DOJ without a board vote? I mean, we don't have to bring this up for a vote. We can submit this plan, we can get community input on it and submit it.
But is everything else ready to go with it? All the other factors, is
No.
it ready?
They haven't
But this is kind of the big one.
Well,
This
you
is the
know,
big one.
We only
No.
have a certain amount of money. And when you start talking about everything you have to submit, you know, that's a scary proposition.
Correct, because it all costs money.
Well,
To-
It does.
To go further in explanation of the resolution, we did specifically call out the zone line that the committee had recommended. That's because it was vetted out by the committee. I wasn't in any of those meetings. I don't know how that worked, but they came out of the room with a zone line. To me, at the time, you might as well just submit that one to start, again, if you read the resolution, which I don't think you have, to start the process.
That's why I don't want to submit that one.
Well, then submit
And-
yours.
Okay, that's good. What more do we need another resolution? Do we need action? Or are you guys ready for me just to submit something?
Did you hear from once you sent this out, what you talked about on Tuesday, did you hear back from any of the committee members who were not in attendance?
No.
Were the committee members led to believe that socioeconomic was a required factor?
No. It's just that it was important. They, in no way, he didn't say at all that it was a requirement of the DOJ or the LDF. He just was merely presenting sound educational, information.
And we have a committee member here. I don't know if the board would like to.
So, is it possible to just, how do we give permission, other than the resolution that we already said we give permission for you to present a zone line? Do we need another one, or can we move forward with presenting a zone line? That's what I mean. If it's up to the board, then we have to vote in order to
Okay,
do
why-
so.
Why did we operate since July with being told we could not discuss this in public and we would not vote on it in public? Is that not what we've been told for 8 months?
Well, prior to July, I advised you to have your negotiations in private and to have your discussions in private. We had multiple executive sessions where we talked about these issues. Once the breakdown occurred where the dispute occurred over the grade configuration and the board no longer wished to have these discussions in private, then you moved into a public. You can have our advice to you has always been to have this dialogue in private. It benefits us through negotiations with the plaintiffs in the case to have private dialogue. But that's not how this board chose to move forward. So at the time when I feel like enough's being said about the litigation that I need to ask for an executive session, I will. I'm trying to avoid that at this meeting.
So I understand, Mr. Nash, that the resolution that was presented states that we suggest the superintendent move forward with presenting the DOJ and the LDF with the committee
A
members'
plan.
zone line. Well, it
A-
specifically says what was approved by the
The
committee.
initial
Correct.
whereas was a plan.
So my question here is, if Mr. Massey obviously is not going to present that zone line, that's been publicly stated. If he is willing to present this zone line, do we need to vote on that zone line, or can we vote that we're okay with Mr. Massey initiating the conversation and developing a plan around this zone line until we're told that's not an approvable zone line? Is that possible to do?
That is my, sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That
So
is
we-
my desire, because again, as a board member, I'm asked to make decisions and votes with as much information as I can get. And it would help all of us drastically to have gotten input from the Department of Justice of LDF and the LDF. If we vote and approve this zone line, what does that mean?
So right now, you're asking to not vote on zone lines.
I'm asking you to submit a zone line to the
Because-
Department of Justice to start the negotiation. They have told us they will not talk to us until you have submitted something. You can't cross the finish line until you start it.
Right, but my understanding was he
Don't
was
he
told
bring
he
it
couldn't
timeline?
present that one until we voted on it. Or he couldn't
Well,
present.
fine, let's
because
vote
we
on it.
didn't.
Make a
But he
recommendation.
had to make a
now.
recommendation to vote
You
on
can
it
do it
in order
right
to
now. Make a
present it.
recommendation.
But we'd have to go back into administrative action.
Well, I don't
And
mind.
amend
I
the
don't mind
agenda.
amending
Just
the-
bring it up next board meeting. Let's get this show on the road. I mean, we
Or
have
can he
beat this
simply-
horse to death.
From a board attorney standpoint, does Mr. Massey have the legal right to simply present a zone line of his choosing to the DOJ?
That's what we did last time.
They asked that it be something that you would support, but if I'm hearing
Correct,
from
but then we're
three
not
board
supposed to vote
members-
on it yet.
Does
So
the-
how do we
is the
support
will
it
of the
without?
board- Is it the will of the board that the superintendent and I work on a submission for this zone line?
I think it's definitely our will that somebody submit something to the DOJ so we can move forward. And at this point, I think if Matt, I don't have a problem with, if this is where Matt wants to start, we start there. We've already discussed ad nauseum that they're not going to take the first thing we give them anyway. So let's just
That's
start
not
somewhere.
necessarily the truth case.
They
I mean,
may.
they may
Chances are
take
they
it.
may not.
I mean, they may take it.
Well, then we need to vote on it.
Well, you let, if it's the
Just-
will of the board that the superintendent and I work on a submission for this plan to the plaintiffs in the case, then you can tell us that without a formal action, it'll be documented in the minutes by Priscilla, and you can move forward. And then it would come back to you once we had some feedback from the plaintiffs. If that's the will of the board.
So without a formal, you're saying the four of us right now could agree to say we would be fine moving forward
Yes,
tonight?
and then you would get their feedback.
Like tomorrow morning, we want somebody to
It won't be tomorrow.
put that.
Tomorrow you have another major
is
deadline.
Friday.
in
We've
another
already
case.
gotten some feedback on this. So, I mean, that was the point of the committee.
Correct, we
That
were-
was chosen
that
by
was
the
Yeah,
board.
this is a lot of, I've gotten a lot of feedback on this because this is one of your original proposals.
It's,
It's map A, is it not?
no, there's differences in it. It
Well,
goes-
but it's a lot like one of your original 10 proposals that you
We
proposed.
looked at probably 20 different maps, so they're gonna look, they start looking alike when you look at 20 different versions of two schools that are 4 miles
It's a
apart.
lot, it's a lot alike.
It is.
So does anybody have a problem with moving forward with a submittal by Mr. Massey to the Department of Justice and LDF in conjunction with the aid of Ms. Thompson?
Let's move forward. Let's get something moving.
I'm
Absolutely
pretty
not.
sure
I don't
you
have
don't
a
have
problem.
any problem. So what'd you
No.
say, we need to make a
That's all I need.
place in the minutes that we would like Mr. Massey to move forward?
With
Yes.
working with plans on this.
And I want to be perfectly clear, that is not my endorsing any zone.
No.
Again, it is to submit something.
It's much like negotiating a contract and
Yes.
approving him to negotiate a contract. Please start negotiating this contract and with where you would like to.
With the board, so how will
As
that
a 9/12.
negotiations?
Then
I
you and
request
I
to
will
take
work-
part of some of the direct conversations, be a part of some of the phone conferences. Can the board express those wishes to be a part of that?
I think it's crazy for you not to be in the room in those conference calls. I don't,
I've made
so I
that
don't have.
request to the claims councils and they rejected it. It's not the normal course of business for the way we handle those types of things, but I can make the request again, but.
Can you
I-
request that they reject that in writing so that we have it at some point when they come back and say, how come you didn't talk to us? We can say, right here, you said don't talk to us.
Yes.
Because I think that's where we're getting concerned, not, is that it's much like the bond money. We have a lot of people who have said that somebody said that we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that, but we don't ever have anything that we can actually stand on that says, this is what you said to do, so that when it comes back later, we have it to say, this is exactly what you told us to do and we did it.
Yes, I'll get that right.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ah.
Aye.